Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining today. Today we're going to be hosting a panel discussion with a few current graduates at Microsoft, so hopefully you'll find that really interesting. I'll start with an acknowledgement of country. So before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land and their continuing connection to our community. We pay respect to them, their culture, to the elders, both past and present. I'll start by introducing myself as well. For those who I haven't met before, I'm Afia. I'm currently working as a cloud solution architect at Microsoft in cybersecurity. I interned last year and I've come back as a graduate this year, and I'm super excited to be here. So as usual, we'll start off with some reminders, then we'll get straight into the panel. And even though I've put Q&A in the end, please ask your questions as they come up during the panel. We want it to be as interactive as possible. So the first reminder is about the Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador Program. If you are interested in becoming a student ambassador, there is a link on the screen to apply. The program is designed for students who are passionate about technology and eager to share their knowledge with other people. It's a great opportunity to develop your technical skills as well as your leadership skills. You might be working on technical projects, setting up workshops, making videos and tutorials. So it's a great opportunity. I'll hold here for a few seconds in case you do want to follow the link. And I'll keep going. I also want to highlight the Microsoft Student Hub, which contains a ton of free resources, and a few of them are pictured. And particularly, I want to call out the GitHub Student Developer Pack. It's a really good resource, especially if you're eager to learn about software development and practice your skills. And I'll go on to the next one. All of these sessions are recorded and put onto Michelle's YouTube channel. We also
Nearly all of them. Nearly all of them. When they don't work, they don't work. But that's the only time it didn't work. So
yeah, almost all of them are on Michelle's YouTube channel. And there's a range of other content on the channel as well, including some technical sessions that have been run. So please check out Michelle's channel and like and subscribe. And we also have the Microsoft Source newsletter, which is a curated which is curated content for the developer community. So if you're interested in learning about new technologies, you want to find opportunities to connect with other developers, it's a really good resource. You'll find information about things like hackathons, technical training sessions, conferences. So I will leave the QR code for a few seconds in case you are following that. And I will move on now. You can also keep up with what the MSA is doing on our socials. We have a QR code to our Facebook page on the left and the LinkedIn group on the right. And I'll keep going. We also host in-person events. The last one we had, I think, was in Melbourne in March, and we usually get a really good turnout. Lots of students come along, and we run some really good events and workshops. So please follow our meetup and come along. And having gone through those, we'll get straight into the panels. So thank you so much to all of our panelists for being here today. I'll start off by asking you all to introduce yourselves, what you're currently doing, how you sort of landed at Microsoft, and anything that's meaningful to you about your journey so far that you'd like to share. So, panelists, over to you.
I think I'll go first, and then I'll just pass it on to someone else after. So hi everyone, my name is Neth. I'm a software engineer for the Azure Kubernetes Services team. We're a fairly new team that started around last year, so all of us are early in careers with two senior software devs, and then most of us are graduate software engineers. I went to Monash in 2024, so I graduated 2024 with a Bachelor of Engineering specializing in software. And I've been at Microsoft for 3 months as of tomorrow. So that's me. Something meaningful. I have to think about that one actually, but I'll pass it on to Sean for now.
Thanks, Neth. Hey everyone, my name is Sean. I joined the same time Neth did, so quite recently. I'm a technical program manager in OneFleet platform, and we work in Azure Core Compliance. So a lot of internal facing work where we're trying to make sure that our platform is internally compliant so we can sell to our customers. I graduated last year with a double degree in commerce and computer science. Had an internship at Deloitte and Bank of Queensland as well in the sort of compliance space, but also more broadly data and reporting. Happy to field any questions. I also don't know anything special that I will call out just yet, but I think I'll pass it on to Eesha.
Thanks, Sean. Hello, everyone. I'm Eesha. Nice to be here and meet all of you. My role currently is a digital Copilot specialist, so I'm a Copilot seller in the modern work team here in Sydney, Australia. I've been with Microsoft for around 13 months ago now. I started off as an intern 13 months ago, actually, with Afia. We both kicked off together, and I converted to a full-time role approximately 6 months ago. And I graduated uni last year in a Bachelor of Business and Bachelor of Information Systems from UTS. And I think something that I've held on to daily in the last 13 months is I think the culture at Microsoft, and I know a lot of people say that, but I think for me, it's one of the first organizations where I felt like home because the people and the support that you get is so warm and welcoming. So that's something that I've held on to, and obviously why I've converted from an intern to a full-time role and what's kept me here for over a year. But super excited to be here, and just like Sean and Neth, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you everyone for introducing yourselves. And I kind of want to move on to asking, in our past few sessions, we spoke more about, getting to that first job. How do you prepare for applications, etc. But I kind of want to take it a step forward and ask, as people who we are fairly new to our roles, how have you approached upskilling and what kind of challenges have you experienced, and what would you suggest to students for a strong start? What's your experience been like so far, in summary? Maybe we can start with Neth again.
Yeah, sure. I'd say upskilling. So when I joined with Azure Kubernetes Services, I wasn't too familiar with the languages personally as a software engineer. With Monash, we learned things like JavaScript, the usual HTML, CSS, and just like coding standards. But when I joined AKS, we started with Go, which was a very fairly new language because I've avoided C and C++ and C# and anything to do with C my entire uni life. So going into Go, which is also a backend language, it was like, oh, I don't want to do this. But I think upskilling wise, it's you still like will experience what tech industry likes to call imposter syndrome, but it's sort of just finding your footing and then finding the people that you can sort of lean on, being able to find managers who are really good at what they do, and just being able to sort of just follow along in their shadow and sort of figure out what they're doing and just kind of pick out the things that you like that they do that make them a really good engineer, and then kind of mash yourself up into being this like a Frankenstein of a software engineer is how I'd say I went about upskilling. I just found someone who's really good at Go and then just kept hounding them to like review my code and nitpick things that were really bad about my code so that I can learn. And I guess going from I used to work, I think should have introduced that earlier, but I used to work on the Monash eSolutions team as a software engineer. We were part of creating the Moodle website. So the new 4.1 launch last year was one of my internship experiences. So going from an environment where they tell you what to do, from like the tickets to what they expect out of getting everything done, versus going to Microsoft that was like, here's the project, do what you need to do to get it done. You set your own timelines, you set your own deadlines, you find who you need help with, which is like a huge sort of drop in the pool. So that's sort of what I ended up doing, was just finding people to lean on to get upskilling. I might pass to Eesha this time.
Thank you. I think for me, upskilling was a little bit unique because in my role, I have to engage and communicate with customers on a daily basis, but I also need to have a deep understanding of not only Copilot, but the AI landscape. I specifically am a Copilot specialist for the Australian public sector, specifically Victorian government, Western Australia, and Southern Australia. So for me, upskilling was extremely broad. And I think the major challenge I had is, where do I start? Do I start off by understanding what the public sector and how governments operate? Do I start off by understanding Copilot as a product? Or do I start off by building my 21st century skills in how do I communicate? How do I use my critical thinking and problem solving to help our customers on a daily basis? But I think the best thing that I did was probably use my curiosity and create a plan. And this is something that I always recommend to people. I don't think being ambitious is ever a wrong thing. And I think over communication is always great. And we all have our own learning preferences. So from the beginning, I was always very vocal about, I'm always a visual learner. So if whether that's to my manager or my team, if I want to learn something new, if you can visually explain things to me, that's the way that I learn best. But also, there's so many resources in this world, it can get quite overwhelming and confusing. So it's important to also maybe dilute that and just ask that question of, there's so many resources out there. If you could pick 5 for me to start off with this week, which 5 would you pick? And start there. You'll have some questions. Go back with those questions and those will open the door. But the most important thing is, don't overwhelm yourself, and you naturally will be learning at least one new thing each day, which will upskill you at the end of the week to a new level that you haven't unlocked yet. And with that, I'd love to now pass on to Sean.
Thanks, Eesha. I think I'd like to also echo some of what Neth and Eesha has mentioned. With sort of AI these days, the barriers to knowledge is quite low. And I think that's a very exciting thing in terms of upskilling and just having that curiosity to find out more. Personally, in terms of technical skills, yes, I learned some throughout university and throughout my experiences, but that hasn't been the really big gap that I've experienced coming into my role at Microsoft. I think the biggest change that I had to adapt to is a lot of contextual knowledge, backgrounds, how the processes are going, a lot of detail that I have to understand in order to be able to basically effectively provide value and see where I can make changes. And sort of like Neth was saying before, that really relies on trying to always reaching out to people, being proactive, trying to find out what you can and who knows what, and leveraging your network in that sort of way to get up to speed. But I would say in terms of how useful university was, there was probably only a handful of units which had really core technical knowledge that I'm using today, most of them to do with data. But I would certainly say my internships helped me a lot, just in terms either to get used to like the whole working environment, but also just to see how different companies do different things. And I would definitely advocate for trying to get a bit of that sort of internship experience and a whole wider experience on top of university when you're trying to move forward in your career and graduating and finishing up. Yeah, that's all I have to say. Back to you, Afia.
Yeah. Okay, I got a lot out of that. So Neth talked about mentoring and kind of having people you learn from, and then Eesha spoke about sort of figuring out where do you start with all the information and putting your own learning style forward. And then Sean, I think you spoke about kind of getting accustomed to how a workplace runs and that being sort of I guess potentially sometimes a bigger barrier than actual technical content, and all of that really resonated with me. And I'll add to that that I think for my own upskilling, something I found hard was sort of just asking for all the help that I needed, especially because I think that less so now, but in my kind of first 1 or 2 months, I had this serious sense of, I wanted to make a really good impression. And I had this feeling of if I said I needed help, then I was taking from that. But that's not a sustainable way to work. And I had a meeting with my manager where I had a list of this is everything that I'm finding hard right now. I think this is the help I need. And how can I do that? And that really helped me move forward. So I wanted to share that as well. So how I go about kind of week to week now is going through that list and making sure I'm tracking with those things so that, I can grow in those areas rather than kind of just having them in my head that this is hard for me. So yeah, thank you everyone for sharing your experience. And I want to sort of take a step back now and ask as well, how did you prepare for your, Microsoft application process? What things did you do that you feel helped you the most? And is there anything you would do differently now? Maybe let's start with Eesha.
Yeah, sure. Well, I don't think my conversion from an internship to a full-time role was a big jump. So maybe that in itself might not be a good example. But what I'd love to share is what I did to be able to make that jump. And I know a lot of people say make connections, but it's so true. I feel like when you reach out to people, and that could be something as simple as, hi, I'm interested in a career at Microsoft, or I'm interested in learning about what your role does in a day-to-day to see if that's the right fit for me, and just starting that conversation, it opens a floor up. So not only are you building that brand, but you're also building connections with people and learning from them. And then something else that I did that I thought worked really well for me in my application process was I actually created a PowerPoint deck. Now, I know that might seem a tiny bit excessive, but I promise it works. And it's a one-pager on who am I? Who am I as a human? So like, what do I like? What don't I like? What are my hobbies? What's my professional experience today? And then this might not apply to everyone, but a little one pager on my professional experience, a testament to what I've achieved so far. So that could be my sales experience, my previous projects, what my revenue generation has been, for example. But most importantly, I created a slide on a 30, 60, 90-day plan. And for someone who's never heard that before, that essentially is, in my first 30 days of the role, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to have a one-on-one meeting with my manager. I'm going to meet with all of my team members. I'm going to get to know Microsoft as an organization. I'm going to join a new club or community, for example. In my next 60 days, what would I like to achieve in this role? And finally, in my first 90 days in this role, what are all the things that I'm going to do? And I think that gives the hiring manager, the HR, or the organization itself that one, you're a goal-oriented person, and also that you're realistic in this role, and you're setting expectations on what you can achieve in those first 90 days. And so before my interview, I actually emailed that package over to not only the HR, but also the hiring manager, and they reviewed that. So I went to my interview knowing that they'd not only know about my professional experience and who I am as an individual, but they know that I want this role really badly. And I think that's something that I took as a strong turn in my application process that I think turned in my favor. But I'd love to now pass on to Neth to hear more about what she did.
Cool. Thanks, Eesha. So this is going to be very software engineer related. So this is going to be very, very different from, I guess, your experience as a digital enterprise Copilot specialist. So with software engineering, the way I prepared for it, well, every interview with software engineering has their whole leak code questions, the online assessment to begin with, to kind of weed out the right people, and then into the interview stages you go. I think mine had 3 interviews on top of the OA, 2 of them technical, 1 of them behavioral. So it was a pretty lengthy process of just back-to-back interviews until I finally heard the decision. But the things that I did to prepare, and I know this is a lot of people I've seen on the internet, especially like how to get those engineer roles, they always say do leak code questions, do leak code questions. Like, yes, leak code questions are very important. It builds your background on data structures and algorithms and things like that. But I think the one thing that really resonated with me when I did the interview for Microsoft as a company was just how much experience you have doing technical things was very important to them. Like, yes, you can memorize a leak code question. If they ask you something, you're in luck. You know exactly what that question is because you memorized it. But they'll ask you questions like, what kind of projects did you do? What languages did you go out of your way to learn? Because, you know, at Monash, you learn like JavaScript and things like that, but they never teach you things like React or any frameworks or any like ESS stuff. They don't teach you that stuff. So one of the things that I ended up talking about and prepared with is I went out of my way to learn new frameworks like React, for example, and I built a project based on React. So I used the Spotify API and created my own like 6-month version of Spotify Wrapped, mainly because I couldn't wait for the yearly Spotify Wrapped and I wanted to see it just so I can change the outcome. Anyways, so I created my own Spotify Wrapped and I talked about that during my interview. I was like, I used React, I did this, I used APIs, I learned how to call endpoints and all these technical jargons that I knew I understood. And then I explained it to my manager in a way that made like it seem like I was explaining it to someone who didn't know what any of this concept was, kind of like explaining to a child. So I spent a couple of months trying to learn these new concepts and sort of memorizing how to explain it to someone who had never seen these concepts before. And I think that really stands out against anyone who can memorize a leak code question, is just the experience that you have building a project or working in a team. So unique experiences and things like that was how I ended up preparing. But yes, leak code is also important. So please do that because you do need to know how to solve those questions. But yes, I'll pass it on to Sean.
Thanks, Neth. I think my interview process was maybe relatively less technical, so I might just take a bit of a step back. Following on what Eesha said about networking, I also think it's very important to network not just with the intention of, you know, getting referrals and all that jazz, but more for your benefit to understand what these roles entail and make sure that you fully understand who they're looking for and whether that would be a right career fit for you, because ultimately you're going to do your best work if you're doing the work you love and it's kind of in line with your strengths and what you're interested in. Saying that, in terms of, I guess, preparing for the whole interview process and applying itself, I think some of the lessons I definitely learned was to make sure you're really doing your research on, like I said, the role and the company, and using that information to either tailor your resume so that you're emphasizing the strengths that they're looking for. And also it sort of results in a bit of a better, I guess, interview flow when you're really understanding what your interviewer does, how they sort of fit in the rest of the business. And that will really make sense. And you'll really see that in the sort of questions that they ask in the behavioral questions. So whether, you know, they ask you, when was the time you were a good problem solver or something like that, pretty generic behavioral question, but really understanding why they're looking for that. Is it because for example, in my role, technical program manager, they're looking for someone that can use data to look for trends and push change. So really contextualizing the role and being ready for that throughout the whole interview process is really important. But yeah, no leak codes for me for the technical program manager stream. I think what really helped me was my internship experience. I had quite a lot of projects, a bit of personal, but also some work stuff and some stuff from uni that I could kind of showcase the skills that they were looking for and sort of have that match. Yeah, I'll hand back to you now, Afia.
Okay, thanks everyone. I want to ask, in addition to what you all said, having the experience you have now, is there anything that you feel you wish you knew as a university student about working at Microsoft that you know now? I'll let you choose who goes first.
I'm happy to take this one. I'd also like to preface this by saying I feel like I should fish out of water because I don't know what on earth a leak code is, and I just searched it up. And I feel like the odd one out here, but I'm learning things. See, this is part of the upskilling, learning what leak code is. But no, it's a great question, Afia, because I think when you go into a graduate role or you go into your first full-time role, you're so consumed by what the future looks like, we often forget to pause and look at the past. And if back when I was in uni, what would I have done differently, or what would I have changed to make this process easier for myself? And the first thing is, people have this mindset, people as in including me, that Microsoft is a massive organization, definitely not easy to get into. It's, full of really ambitious people. All of these things are true. Microsoft is a massive organization full of amazing and ambitious people. But if you are that person, you will fit right in. So the first thing is to not stop yourself from even applying, because you immediately isolate Microsoft because it's a big organization. You could be part of that too. And I think that's a mindset game, and believing in yourself to even apply, to talk to people, whether that's reaching out to people on LinkedIn, or you have this amazing accelerator platform here where you could easily reach out to Afia, myself, Neth, Sean, or Michelle on LinkedIn and ask us these questions, and that could be your first step, right? And the second thing would be is don't shy away from I guess learning how to communicate your experience. Now, to get into Microsoft, at least, I don't think everybody needs experience in the same role that you're applying for. But what I do think you need to develop skills in is, how do you take the experience that you have developed in uni, whether that's through a uni subject, a university project, or a part-time job you were doing. You enabled communication in all of those jobs. You enabled teamwork and collaboration in all of those jobs, in all of those projects. So how do you take these skills and then put that into your application, rather than immediately thinking, and which I did as well, is, oh, I've never been in a full-time sales role before. No, I haven't, but I have used the skills that I need in this role in uni before. So look at the skills rather than the job titles, and I think that will open up the door for you more. And I think the third thing is, it's okay to be confused on what to apply for. I did a business degree. I had no idea whether I wanted to do marketing, sales, finance. It's a really big world out there, right? So by looking at the skills that you love rather than job titles, it makes your life easy, because I'm a people person. I love talking to people. So that made things really easy for me. Which out of all of these business functions has the most people interaction? And that's a customer facing role, right? But yeah, I'd say the biggest thing is believing in yourself. It sounds cliche, but you are the only one that is stopping yourself from submitting that application, from sending that LinkedIn message. Yes, you are going to get rejections, but that is part of the process of making you become stronger and grow. And I'd love to now pass on to Sean to perhaps share his insights.
Thanks, Eesha. One thing that I didn't know about Microsoft, I guess, or underestimated, was really how big a big company is. Even if you ask me now, I'm probably not going to know more than 80% of the company, like what all the different divisions are and what they're in charge of. And that's okay. I guess we are quite isolated. So I'm in the Melbourne office, and a lot of my team members are, or a lot of the other colleagues are either in sales or also in Microsoft engineering. But we've got so many other divisions like LinkedIn or OpenAI, like the big buzzwords, and all different roles that are out there. So I guess echoing what I said before, definitely be aware of what all these different roles are. To be completely honest, when I applied, the role description was really, really vague. So it was kind of hard for me to understand what the role itself would entail. But that has definitely become clearer, as I join through conversations with my manager and other people in similar roles as well. So definitely, like Eesha said, encourage you to try and reach out to people and really get that deeper understanding of what these roles are. Yeah, and another thing I would say about Microsoft is the growth sort of mindset is really there. Like they're not going to expect you to know everything straight off the bat. In fact, they would prefer you to be open to the fact that you're not going to know everything, but you have that sort of attitude to learn and ability to adapt to change because in the world that we're living in right now, there's change every day, whether it's the new AI model that comes out or Trump drops tariffs or something, I don't know. But there's a lot of change, and it's really important to have that mindset to adapt and stay on top of things and that willingness to learn. I'll pass on to Nef now.
Thanks, Sean. I feel like Eesha and Sean had really good points. Pretty much everything that I wanted to encapsulate. I sort of just want to add on to it is, I guess, have the confidence in yourself to apply for these roles and just go for it. Even if Microsoft's a huge company, like I know the buzzwords for software engineers, like FANG companies, big tech companies, like they like believe it or not, it's more about how confident you are with stuff that you know. And honestly, it's just like having the wanting to know it all concept of like the learn it all concept, as Satya Nadella would call it. Microsoft is looking for learn it alls rather than know it alls. And be honest with what you want to learn with. Like, for example, with I think my very last interview with my actual hiring manager, the manager that I currently work for, he asked if I had worked with Azure before, and I just looked at it and I was like, no, I haven't. I've never used that before. I've used Google Cloud Console, but I've never used Azure. He's like, all right, interesting. I'm like, yeah, but I want to learn. Like, I'm very happy to learn, and I can definitely pull my weight around. He was like, all right, cool. And a couple of weeks later, I'm here. I've got the job. So I guess like being honest and just being like, I just want to learn. Like I've wanted to go out of my way to learn Google Cloud Console, but I never had the chance to learn Azure. So just be open about it, and I guess always be hungry to learn more is what Microsoft is looking for. With the culture at the company, it's just they really will give you a chance if you just want to know more, rather than I know everything, I'm coming in here to prove my skills. It's like, no, I don't know anything. I'm going to be coming in to learn and get my skills up. But yeah, that's the kind of mindset that you'd want to have, or ideally would want to have to apply here. But yeah, back to you, Afia.
Thanks everyone for sharing. I want to open it up to the audience. Does anyone want to come off mute and ask a question, or ask a question in the chat? Yep. Is it Junyong? Do you want to ask a question?
Yes. Hello. Thank you all for sharing your insights. I really appreciated like all of your experiences talking about your interviews and what you found useful and so on. So yeah, I really liked that, especially the 30, 60 day 90 plan. I did take note of that. So hopefully I'll be able to use that sometime soon as well. My question was in terms of all of your roles, but particularly I guess for the non-technical roles, because I'm not doing comp sci or software engineering. In terms of like you mentioned, communicating your skills and experiences to Microsoft, what do you think are the best ways to, I guess, demonstrate the skills that are relevant, even though I haven't worked with specific technologies like Azure or like any, I guess, Microsoft internal tools.
I can try to take this one. So good question. And what I'd recommend you do is first read the job description, right? What skills and qualifications is the job description asking for? Most of the time, it's going to be a list of 21st century skills, which makes your life pretty easy, right? Because then you look at, regardless of the name of the project, what technology, you having technical experience or not, in your life, in various different situations, you most likely have used communication skills and problem solving skills and team working skills and all these basic skills, right? So including those skills in the job description in your resume, but also then picking the best examples where you then demonstrated those skills. And when it comes to maybe Microsoft products or solution areas, whether that's Azure or modern work or AI in general, Microsoft has a lot of great learning resources. So when you're applying for a job, let's say, for example, in Azure, then I'm sure there's a lot of different links, and also Microsoft Learn has a lot of different resources you have to be able to do courses and to learn more on what Azure is. And then putting that in your resume and also mentioning that throughout your hiring process, that I don't know what this role is going to be. I don't know what your expectation of my knowledge on Azure is, but I went out of my way to do a course on Azure one-on-one, and this is my current level of knowledge. And it might not show that you're perfect in the solution area, but what it shows is that you want this job and you want this role so badly that you went out of your way to learn the product, and that shows initiative and courage. So I hope that answers your question, but Sean and Neth, please feel free to add to that as well.
Sean, I might give it to you. My dog's losing their mind.
Not much to add, I think. Eesha covered a lot of the stuff that I was thinking of saying anyway. But echoing on using your experience, a lot of the times these skills are there whether you realize it or not. And it's just really important on how you frame it and emphasize these different skills that they're looking for throughout your experiences, and making sure you highlight the ones that it's really clear when you read a sentence on your resume that yes, you're a problem solver. And it's always better to show than to say. There's no point really in including dot points where you're saying you're a good problem solver, critical thinker, etc., etc. But where in your experiences does that actually happen? It could be uni, it could be work, it could be a personal project. And I think just as a general, personal projects do seem they're quite beneficial, and I think high yield for relatively low effort, because it shows you have that initiative to learn and you're hungry to learn. And it could be really anything that you're interested in. And it doesn't have to be a complex project, but it's something you can talk about, something you can showcase, that shows part of who you are.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
No worries.
I can see we have another question. I'm so sorry, I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. But would you like to share as well?
It's me. Yep, just call me Peter. I'm Peter Wei. So yep. So happy to listen your insight today. And my question is about like, because you all mentioned Microsoft is so big to know everything, right? So you're gonna always need to seek a mentor in your organization or external for different projects. So I want to ask you about like how to be a good mentee in a different case and like learn as much as you can during the projects. Yep.
I think I might take this one. This is more, I guess, this is actually for everyone, software engineering wise or not. I think just being a good mentee is just making the initiative to just reach out. When I like joined Microsoft, like I've only been here for 3 months, but I recently managed to harass a mentor into being my mentor. So I do have experience on being a mentee a little bit, but it's just finding the initiative to find someone that you think can really help with upskilling, with what your career goals are, and someone has the same career orientation as you do. So it's pretty much just being transparent about what you want to gain out of a mentorship, for example. I just straight up said that I just want to learn and get better at what I want to do, upskill, maybe jump to software engineer too. Goals later on, but it's just about that, again, taking the initiative to just ask and tell them and be transparent about what you want to learn, what you want to gain out of that relationship, whether it's someone internally or someone externally. Like my mentor is not someone from my team. I sort of just reached out and found someone that I really liked, and I think I could learn a lot from. But yeah, just being able to have that connection, because they're really busy, especially mentors. They're probably like usually are someone higher up than you are, so, and they've got their own problems to deal with. So being a good mentee is just reaching out, setting up some time for, I guess, one-on-ones. But yeah, all about the initiative. I really hope that answered your question.
Yep, thank you so much. Appreciate. Yeah.
And I think we are exactly at time. So I think let's finish it here for today. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. Thank you to the panelists for being here today. I think we had a really good discussion, and I hope everyone found that useful. And hopefully see you all again on the first Friday of next month. Bye.
Thanks, Afia.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.